Welcome to the today's lecture, that is gene transfer and genetic recombination. We will be basically talking about the various methods of gene transfer and genetic recombination that we routinely do in the molecular biology laboratories. That how we do that, what are the processes, what is the basic principle, how it was invented, what is the history. So everything would be narrated. Main learning objective is you will be getting to understand the principle of gene transfer and genetic recombination. What are their different types of mechanisms and methods that we can use and we normally implement in our routine experiments also. So starting with the first thing, gene transfer. So as the name suggests, gene transfer. That means we are talking about the transferring of a gene. However, it is quite a simple technique in which we can very efficiently and very stably take out one gene, or you can say we can introduce one foreign gene into the genome of altogether different organism. So that is a gene transfer process. That means either you can insert unrelated and such kind of genes that may confer some unique property to the recipient organism. That is the process of gene transfer, in which we would be transferring DNA into from one organism to another organism. That means whenever you are transferring genes, or whenever you are talking about DNA, that you have took out DNA from one organism and then you have pasted that DNA, or you have inserted that DNA to altogether different organism. In that case, the genotypic configuration of a particular bacteria will change. That means we can simply say that gene transfer is a technique in which the bacterial genotype is altered, or it can be changed by transferring the genetic material from one bacteria to another. That means in that case, whatever DNA we are transferring or whatever foreign DNA we are talking about, they can either recombine with the genome of recipient bacteria, or they can be present onto the plasmid, and that is capable of independent replication inside the recipient bacteria. So what is the concept behind it actually? Suppose this is the one bacteria and this is the second one. We know that in bacteria plasmids are present. These are plasmids I am making. Suppose you are taking one gene from here. So this one is the donor. I am marking the donor as D. So this bacteria is the recipient. So whenever you are taking the gene from here, in that case, either this gene can be integrated inside the genome. This is suppose the genome. Either this gene can be integrated into the genome of this recipient bacteria. That is the first case. That is recombined with the genome of recipient bacteria. Or it can be present onto these plasmids, because plasmids are the small molecules, small DNA molecules that are capable of independent replication. They do not need to depend upon the host machinery to to replicate themselves or to survive. In that case, either the foreign DNA can be inserted onto the plasmid or directly to the genome of the recipient. So that is the main point of gene transfer. Now the point is genetic recombination, because whenever we are going for gene transfer, in that case we are basically recombining the different DNAs so that we can get a recombinant organism. That means the genetic recombination, it is a process when the sequence of DNA from two separate sources are integrated. Basically, we will be, if we have the sequence, you can directly identify that this very gene or this very DNA sequence is conferring this property. Suppose they are, imposing some resistance to some antibiotic. In that case, also we go for genetic recombination. In that case, the first important point is the gene transfer is directed or it is specific. We excise one desirable gene so that and another bacteria can have the similar kind of property. So this kind of directed desirable gene transfer, when we carry out from one organism to another, and the subsequent, if they are stably integrated and they are expressing into the recipient organism, that complete process is known as genetic recombination or genetic transformation. However, whatever gene we are taking out, that gene is known as transgene, and whatever organism who is receiving this transgene after the recombination, that organism is known as transgenic. For example, we say it as transgenic plant varieties are there. For example, BT cotton. We say transgenic animals have been constructed. In that case, also in all these processes, this mechanism, these techniques are being implemented so that we can have a better or improvised variety of plants, or we can have altogether a different type of transgenic animals also. Now, going straight to the mechanism part, there are basic four main processes that is involved in the genetic recombination of bacteria. These processes are conjugation, transformation, transduction, and cell-to-cell fusion. As you can see in this picture, this is the donor cell. I am marking it. This is the donor cell. If from the donor cell, the material is being transformed with the help of fast DNA, that process is known as transduction, and you are ultimately getting the recombinant cell. If this donor cell is being transferring the DNA with the help of a conjugation tube, if this is the process, this process is known as conjugation. If if this DNA is being transferred by natural transformation is happening, in which DNA is directly being uptaken by a recipient bacteria, that process is known as transformation. As you can see in this slide also, here you can see this is the free naked DNA that is being attached onto the cell surface, and it is being taken inside, and the bacteria that we are getting, that is a recombinant cell. So discussing all these methods in detail, first is conjugation. First point is, it is a horizontal gene transfer mechanism. That means genes are transferred horizontally, in which transfer of DNA from a living donor bacteria to a recipient bacteria, it is happening through the formation of conjugation tube, or you can call it as pillars. However, from where we got the evidence that this is the mechanism, or bacteria are using these mechanisms to form a recombinant cell, or to transfer the foreign one DNA from another, DNA from one organism to another. So this complete thing was proposed by two scientists known as Lederberg and Tatum in the year 1946. They conducted some experiments in the E. coli. And from there, we got the information that this is the mechanism actually due to which a conjugation tube is being formed between the two bacteria, so that they can transfer or they can exchange the genetic material. So they normally, what they inferred from it, that there are two mating types of bacteria. One is known as donor and another is known as recipient. The strain which is considered as donor, that is known as male type or F positive type. Male type or F positive type. As the name suggests, it is a donor organism, it is a donor bacteria, so it will donate the DNA. Another one is who is receiving the DNA, that is known as female type or F negative, or recipient cell which will be receiving the DNA. Now, whenever you are, talking about the conjugation process, in that case, there are certain requirements. That is, you need a donor strain. Donor strain, that means which will contain F plasmid. If a particular bacteria is having an F plasmid, you can say fertility plasmid. That is known as, those strains are known as F positive strains, or we call it as donor strains. This F plasmid, it basically contains the F factor that encodes various pilus protein that are required for the formation of conjugation tube and the pilus between the two bacteria. Then they also code for an enzyme, endonucleases. Endonucleases that will initiate the rolling circle replication and regulatory factors, so that the DNA shall be cut, internally, then it shall be transferred, then through the rolling circle mechanism it would be again replicated, and altogether a new copy of F plasmid is present in the recipient bacteria. However, we call this F factor also as an episome. Episome means this F factor has the capability that it can exist either as autonomously replicating plasmid. That means it can be present independently inside the recipient bacteria. It do not require host machinery. So it will keep on replicating independently. In that case, it is known as episome. Either it can be present in an independent form, or it can get integrated inside the genome. When an F factor is integrated inside the genome, that thing is known as episome. Next thing we require is recipient strain. Recipient strain would be F negative because it is not having F plasmid. F negative strains will encode for the proteins that will allow the pilus that has been formed by F positive plasmid to attach to the cell wall so that the exchange can be happened. And whenever there is an important point, whenever this F negative strain, it receives the F plasmid from donor bacteria, it also changes to F positive because right now this cell is also having the F plasmid so that it can transfer it further. So first of all, we are talking about the first mating, that is F positive and F negative mating. That is the basic mating with what we study in the conjugation process. As we know, there are two mating types of bacteria. One is F positive, another is F negative. F positive is the donor bacteria and F negative is the recipient bacteria. What happens is when the donor bacteria donates the DNA, after receiving the DNA, the recipient cell will also change to F positive type. F factor, we call it as fertility factor, sex factor, or F plasmid, and they are present in the cell of F positive or donor cell or male type. However, this plasmid, it takes place in the conjugation process, and if it get integrated inside the genome of recipient, then it is known as episome. In this process, two cells of opposite mating type, that is F positive and F negative, they attach with the help of pilus or conjugation tube. After that, the F positive strain that is containing an extrasomal F factor carrying the gene for pilus formation and endonuclease enzyme and plasmids transfer, they transfer the genomic material, genetic material after the formation of conjugation tube, and they prepare this F plasmid basically prepare for the rolling circle mechanism, and the two strands of this F negative factor begin to separate from each other, and one of them passes to the recipient cell. Let's see the picture of it. This is the steps. This is an F positive cell. This is F negative cell. That means this is the donor cell and this one is the recipient cell. So in the first step, what is happening? Donor cell, due to the presence of this F plasmid, it will encode certain proteins that are required for this conjugation tube or pilus formation. The conjugation or pilus would be formed. It will attach to the cell wall of recipient bacteria. Once this is formed, after that the cells will make a close contact by this, as you can see. The close contact has been made. Now this plasmid, the one strand of this F plasmid DNA will be transferred to the recipient. How? Because I was talking about this F plasmid, it contains F factor. That F factor codes for proteins that are required for conjugation tube. Here you can see the conjugation tube has been formed. Second thing was that it is encoding for endonucleases that are required to initiate rolling circle mechanism. So what these endonucleases will do? Endonuclease, that means such kind of enzymes that have the capability to make internal cuts in the nucleic acid. So what it will do? It will make a cut over here. Because of this cut, one strand of this F plasmid will transfer from donor to the recipient. This recipient strand, once it has reached to the recipient cell, the rolling circle mechanism would be initiated and a altogether new copy of F plasmid would be present in this recipient cell. Now, once this F plasmid is transferred to this F negative cell, it will also change to F positive cell. That means after receiving the F plasmid from the donor cell, the F negative recipient cell would be changed to F positive cell. Next thing is HFR. HFR means we just discussed that F vector is an episome. That means it can stably integrate inside the bacterial chromosome at different locations by carrying out the recombination between either the homologous sequences that are present on the plasmid also and that are present on the host chromosome also. Only then the recombination is happening. That is why they are being stably integrated and being expressed. Once these genes are integrated, once this plasmid is integrated, the traoperon of F plasmid, it still remains functional even if it is integrated inside the bacterial genome. That traoperon is basically coding for some genes that are responsible for transfer. That is why we call it as traoperon. This traoperon. So what happens is this, that is why they are able to direct the synthesis of villi, they are able to carry out the rolling circle mechanism, they are able to transfer the genetic material to an F negative recipient of a cell, and such type of donor cell is known as HFR strain, that is high frequency of recombination, because it will exhibits a very high efficiency of chromosomal gene transfer in comparison with the F positive cells. However, the DNA transfer will always starts when an integrated F vector is nicked with an endonuclease enzyme. Only then the transfer can be started. So what is an HFR cell? What you can say in nutshell? When an F vector or F plasmid, it exists in the integrated state within the host chromosome, that thing is known as HFR cell. As you can see in this picture also, this is a donor cell, that is F positive cell. This is the donor chromosome. If this F positive cell, if this plasmid get integrated inside this bacterial genome, then it is known as HFR cell. Now, how this HFR is basically transferring the genetic material or F plasmid genes to a altogether F negative recipient bacteria. That is the point. Now, as you can see, this is the formation of HFR that was present in the previous slide. Now, once this HFR strain has been formed, we will call it as F positive cell because the F plasmid is present. Now, at this point, what will happen? These F plasmid genes will encode for pilus. The pilus is formed. It has made a contact with this F negative recipient cell. Once this F negative recipient cell has made a contact, what will happen? Endonuclease enzyme will make a cut. A cut is made. The one strand of this episome, it would be transferred to the recipient cell. Now, once this is transferred, what will happen? Because right now, this plasmid is present in the integrated form within the bacterial genome. So what will happen when this one strand of F plasmid is being transferred to the recipient bacteria? At that time, along with the F plasmid, some of the donor genomic DNA would also get transferred, as you can see here. This is the F plasmid part and this is the donor genomic DNA. Because this F plasmid content won't be transferred completely in case of HFR, because as you can see here, the few part of F plasmid is left behind. So the conjugation, it ends with the pieces of F plasmid and donor DNA in the recipient cell. Cell will start synthesizing its complementary DNA strands by rolling circle mechanism, and that donor DNA and recipient DNA, they will recombine to make a recombinant F negative cell. But it will remain F negative cell because the complete F plasmid has not been transferred. So this is again the same thing that what I have explained. The DNA transfer begins when the integrated F vector is nicked at the site of transfer origin. Once it is replicated, the chromosome will move through the pillars or the conjugation bridge that is connecting the donor and recipient. Because only the part of F vector is being transferred at the start, the initial break is within the F plasmid. However, the F negative recipient will not become F positive until and unless the whole chromosome is transferred. The transfer in the case of E. coli, this complete transfer has been found to be, completed in the time span of 100 minutes. And the connection usually breaks before the process is finished because it will take a very long time because the complete bacterial genome now has to be transferred if we want that complete F plasmid is to be transferred. That is why the recipient bacteria it remains F negative because one before the completion of process that conjugation tube and that pilus it basically breaks off. Next, the genetic recombination mechanism is transformation. This process was discovered by a scientist, Fred Griffith, in the year 1928. He basically, performed some sort of experiments onto the mice, and he reported that the transformation it is the process by which the cell can uptake the naked DNA molecule or any fragment from the environment, or it can incorporate that very molecule into the recipient microbe, into recipient chromosome in a heritable form. That means if that DNA has been uptaken, that thing will be passed on to the further generations also, or that property would be being expressed by other generation, future generations also. So in natural transformation, what happens is the DNA that is normally coming from a donor bacteria and the process is random. Any portion of the genome, it can be transferred between the bacteria. And once the bacteria is lysed, they will release large amount of DNA into the environment. From that very environment, small DNA fragments can be uptaken by the recipient bacteria, and this process is known as natural transformation. However, this process was completely, reported by the scientist Frederick Griffith, which he conducted the experiments onto the Diplococcus pneumoniae, because it was found that Diplococcus pneumoniae it have two strains. One strain is S3 and another is R2. This S3 corresponds to S stands for smooth and R stands for rough. So here it was quoted that S3 strain is virulent. It is pathogenic. Why? Because it is having a lipopolysaccharide or LPS capsule, because of which if this very strain is infecting a mice, the mice is getting the disease of pneumonia, and because of that the mice is dying. However, in case of R2 strain, R2 means rough. It is avirulent. It is not pathogenic because in this strain the LPS capsule is not present, and a rough shaped colonies are normally observed onto the bacteria. That is why this strain is named as rough or R2 strain. However, in case of S3 the smooth round shaped proper shaped colonies are formed. That is why we call it as S3 strain. In that case, this is the thing. Colony morphology. R2 it is rough and S3 it is smooth. Capsule it is absent in case of rough and it is present in case of smooth. In case of virulence, S strain is virulent and R strain is avirulent, that is non-pathogenic. So this was the experiment that he performed, that as you can see this is the smooth strain. If you see the cell type, such kind of cell type would be observed. As you can see, this capsule, smooth shaped capsule is present. So this is live strain. When you inject this live strain inside the mice, what was happening? The mice was getting pneumonia and it died. After that, he repeated the experiment. What he did, he took again the smooth strain, but he heat killed this bacteria. After heat killing this, what happened is this LPS capsule was broken. Because of that, when he injected this heat killed S strain inside the mice survived. So from there he got the info that the main virulence thing is present in some LPS capsule or something. But he was not sure. So he again performed another test with the help of rough strain. So this is the rough strain. The colony morphology is rough. There is no capsule, as you can see. So once he injected this thing into the bacteria, he got the info that the mice is basically survived. It is not getting pneumonia. So the main virulent strain is smooth strain. So to carry out this thing, to infer the thing, what he did, he took the heat killed S strain and live R strain. Now, according to this, what should be the expected result, that mice shall survive? But the reverse happened. At that time, mice got pneumonia and the mice died. For that thing, because it was quite confusing, because the separate experiments of both these heat killed S strain and live R strain, it was basically providing the life to mice. But how come this is happening, that if we are mixing both the strains, then the mice is dying? So as to confirm this finding, what he did, he isolated these strains from the dead mice. And when he isolated these Diplococcus pneumoniae strains, what he got? He got live S strain and R strain. The R strain was already injected, that was in live form, but the smooth strain that was injected, that was heat killed. From where come that strain become live? So from there he got the info. There is some sort of thing that is being transferred from one bacteria to another, because of which this live S strain or virulence is again being retrieved, or it is again being regained by the bacteria. So what he did, these four experiments are similar that what I explained. In this thing, mouse injected with S3 strain, mouse died. Then with R2 strain, mice survived. With heat killed S3 strain, again mice survived. When you injected both of these things in combination, the mice died and the live strain recovered. So as to confirm this thing, what he did, because he first of all thought there are some sort of enzymes that are being transferred or some sort of proteins. So as to understand this thing, that what is the genetic material or what is the thing that is being transferred, he performed two more experiments, in which this experiment, mouse injected with heat killed S3 strain and live R2 strain, along with that DNA's enzyme was added. If we are adding the DNA's enzyme, the DNA is being degraded. Because of that, mouse was surviving. However, when you injected protease enzyme along with it, the mouse died of pneumonia. From there, he got the info that the genetic material is DNA and the DNA is being transferred from one bacteria to another. Because of that, mice is surviving. Because of that, the mice first of all died in the first case. From there he reported this process, that the naked DNA is being uptaken by the recipient cell. So from there, the transformation process can be categorized into two types, that is natural and artificial. If you talk about natural, as the name suggests, this process is happening naturally, we are not inducing it. So during the natural transformation, the free fragments of double-stranded DNA of the donor cell, they become attached. What is happening in the normal environment, if some bacteria is getting lysed, suppose this is the donor cell which is lysed or this is burst open. So this genomic DNA, double-stranded DNA that comes from a cell out of the lysis, these fragments will attach onto the recipient bacterial surface. So once these free double-stranded DNA molecules, they are being attached with the surface of recipient bacteria, what will happen? One strand of this double-stranded DNA, it will be digested by bacterial nuclease, and one strand will be then will be entering inside the recipient cell, or it will enter inside the recipient cell in the single stranded form. After that, once it has entered inside, as you can see here, this is the single stranded DNA. After attaching it, the single stranded segment is taken in. Once the single stranded DNA is entered inside, a REC-A protein plays a very important role, because this REC-A protein will coat the surface, or the single stranded DNA would be coated with the help of multiple REC-A protein subunits, so as to provide it stability so that it shall not get degraded. So once it is coated, the next step is the coated single-stranded DNA of the donor bacteria will replace the DNA of recipient cell. As you can see, this is the coated donor DNA, and this is the chromosome of recipient bacteria. In that case, the single stranded DNA will displace this strand. Once this strand is displaced, it will get integrated at this very place, and this is the displaced strand. But there would be a nick because we have displaced the strand. At this time, the base paired alignment of incoming DNA from a homologous segment of recipient's and chromosomal DNA is happening, and this nick is being, or this uh, discontinuity is being repaired by the process of ligation by using the enzyme DNA ligase. And this is the complete recombinant DNA or recombinant bacteria that is being produced in the natural conditions. However, next is artificial transformation. Artificial, as the name suggests, that means we are carrying out this transformation process inside the lab. It is normally carried out inside the laboratory by using many methods. You can use many methods of it. For example, you can use some salts, you can use electric field, you can use ultrasonication waves. Basic processes, what we are doing, we are making the cell membrane of recipient bacteria permeable. If the cell membrane is permeable to the environmental DNA fragments, that DNA fragment would be entering inside. So that is known as artificial transformation, and this approach is very successful in the case of E. coli, because E. coli is the only bacteria that is naturally competent. Competent means a competent cell is that has the ability to uptake the cell at a very high concentration. That means high concentration of DNA, if it is present in the nature, it can be uptaken by the naturally competent cells, and it can increase the frequency of transformation also. Whenever these linear DNA fragments, you can either use linear DNA fragments, you can either use whole genome. In this case, if E. coli is not competent, in the laboratory, we first of all make them competent by treating them with calcium chloride. That is preparation of competent cells. After doing that, the DNA can be, incubated with those competent cell, because those competent cell would be having a permeable membrane, and the DNA fragment or gene of interest that we are trying to insert, that will get integrated inside it. However, we can use many different methods for this artificial transformation. There are physical, chemical, and electrical method. In case of physical methods, it can be microinjection, biolistic transformation method. In case of chemical method, we can use some salts, for example, calcium phosphate method. We can use liposomes also. For electrical method, we can go for electroporation. So all of these methods we would be discussing in our coming lectures also. That how we can basically transform, and what success has been achieved in carrying out this artificial transformation methods in the laboratories. These are the few MCQs pertaining to this complete lecture that is uploaded. Thank you so much for listening.